I want to start with the trenches.
Okay.
Either side of the line, what were your overall takeaways of how Nebraska played in the trenches?
I thought Nebraska's offensive line played one of its best games of the year. It doesn't surprise me that they did, given who they were playing and the fact that UCLA is not very good defensively. I think so that I wasn't shocked by that, but I thought they played relatively well, and on the defensive side of the ball, I, I thought they battled really hard and did a nice job of like stopping UCLA's running back run game. I thought they did a pretty good job of that, and they did what they could against the quarterback. He had a very good game and was very mobile and very dangerous, and he's a good player. I mean, I came away more impressed by him than I was going into the game. I thought he played quite well, and maybe one of his best games of the year, maybe his best game of the year. So I thought Nebraska's defensive line played well. Keona Davis had his best game. He's really coming along, and I thought some of the other guys fought real hard too.
So let me ask you something here, Sam, because we always do this thing, and sometimes I think it's just naturally or inherent. Why do you think we differ on if we lose to Maryland or Michigan State or somebody that we're not supposed to, it gets viewed one way, but if we win and it's against a team that's viewed in a similar light when we haven't before in the past, it gets viewed another. Why? Like, is there a lack of consistency in your opinion? Because it feels like that as to me.
No, I mean I think every road win in the Big Ten is a huge deal, and so there's not really many road games where I would say in the Big Ten where it'd be like, eh. There was, I mean, Purdue last year was probably the one that I thought of where I was like, yeah, that was that team's not very good. But I think UCLA and anytime you went on the road, whether it's at UCLA or Maryland, you can see the way that the players react to it. They know what they did was a big deal, and so it's never a small deal when you go do those things. And every win in the Big Ten is a big deal. I think it's probably just a reflection of the high standards around here, and maybe those standards at times have been too high relative to the situation that Nebraska might be in. I don't know that they're too high this year. I think they're probably appropriate, and I think everybody feels like this is, Nebraska needs to win the games it needs to win. I think there'll be a similar sentiment for Penn State. I'm not sure I'm picking Nebraska to beat Penn State right this moment. I want to see what Penn State does this week against Michigan State, because if Penn State put everything they had into the last two games and they didn't win them, you could see an inevitable letdown, and that may affect the way that they play against Nebraska. But no, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I definitely don't. I definitely don't think that there's a consistency, but it's an understandable inconsistency. It's just how fans are. They see every loss as unacceptable. They see every win is not quite good enough, and then on occasion, there's that 1992 Colorado game where everybody looks around and goes, yeah, that's the way it was supposed to be. Like there's those occasional games that feel that way. But I'm sure you guys look back at the '94 Colorado game, which is the best team Colorado ever had, including its national title team, and you guys probably think it should have been 38-7 instead of 24-7. So it's just human nature when it comes to Nebraska football.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. I don't think so. Like, I don't really care. I don't know. I think at some point you maybe it's just vantage points as I'm kind of processing through this. I think at some point you just want to win and get better.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day,
yeah,
like I just think you want to win and get better.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I look at it.
Well, I think you're looking at it more from a coach's perspective, and you're looking at maybe having a growth mindset, and I don't know that fans necessarily look at it as a growth mindset. Like they don't. They show up on Saturday, they talk about it during the week, and they're results oriented, which again, makes sense. Like if you look at any entertainment product, or you go to a great restaurant, and Nebraska football is an incredible restaurant. Like the people who come in are looking for the experience. They're not necessarily appreciative of the process that got it there. Like anybody who's ever seen the show The Bear understands all that goes into making the final product what it is, and the experience what it is. And it's a lot of stress and all the other things. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a tension that I think the media has to live with, is that, we get a lot of emails. I got emails right after the game that were they were great emails, because they were like, and I usually get these emails from a couple of fans of like, here's what I liked, but this isn't going to work anymore. Like that's just how people's reactions were. We got the same kind of reaction about TJ Lateef. I think people saw that and everybody thought, yeah, that looked really good. That's the way it's supposed to look. And, Nebraska only scored 28 points. I mean, they scored more at Maryland, but I think everybody looked around and said, yeah, the defense is doing its very best and they're trying hard. But that's the offense that we've been looking for right there. And that was a very cool thing to have happen in the middle of November with a true freshman quarterback. Now, I don't know that he's going to duplicate it, because the two teams they're playing coming up are way better defensively than UCLA. But the feeling around Lateef's play, not only from fans, but his teammates, the way they reacted, that was something close to like joy. And probably because they had more to do with his success than they did when it's Dylan, because Dylan brings a few more things to the table than a true freshman would. So I think there was a great affection for TJ on Saturday night, because I think they understood I gave a little bit more in this game so that this kid could shine, and he did not let us down. I think that's what you saw from players, is they were hoping he would be this good, and he was even better than anybody expected.
Sam, strange question here, I guess, just kind of to give context to what we're talking about. If I gave you Michigan State, Maryland, Northwestern, and UCLA, what order would you put those defenses in from best to worst?
From best to worst?
Yeah.
Northwestern, Maryland, Michigan State, UCLA.
Okay. So I just want to be clear here when we're talking about points.
Yeah.
Well, you said only 28 points. They only snapped the ball 50.
Yeah, the points per play is great, right?
It's what you got to look at. Like
I was not speaking of my own feelings, but what
Sure.
I think fans, you could in theory juxtapose Nebraska's offensive performance against Maryland with its offensive performance against UCLA and say, well, Nebraska had more yards and points against Maryland. That's true, but they didn't have any turnovers against UCLA, and they were more efficient and more explosive. That's what I meant. So I wasn't saying that Nebraska's offense against UCLA was worse. It was actually, that's the best it's been, I think, all year, and it's worth reflecting on why. Part of the reason is because UCLA is not very good. But also part of the reason is because Nebraska played its best, and the offense that they were able to run around Lateef seemed to fit what Nebraska's trying to do. Now, they didn't throw it a ton. They threw it like 13 times or whatever, but 15 times. But, you just look at it and go, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to look. We like how that looked, and we'll see if they're able to build on that going into the final two games.
I mean, just for what it's worth, they only ran 59 plays compared to against Maryland versus 54 against.
Right. I was gonna say
that against UCLA. As we both agree that UCLA is the worst defense of the bunch that I gave you, and that is they still scored 34 points while turning the ball over 3 times. I get the turnovers are part of the performance, but in terms of actual offensive efficiency, like it was better against a better defense in Maryland. Mm-hmm. I think so. Yes. I just think that context is very important because, and this is why, Sam, I'm not trying to trap you, put you in a corner here. My point is because we do the same thing on the defense a lot, is where because we don't like how it looks, we think it wasn't a good performance, or because we do like how it looks, for instance, with UCLA and TJ Lateef in the offense, then we think it's a better performance than maybe it really was. And not to take anything away from Emmett Johnson or what TJ Lateef did or what I think was the best offensive line performance of the season, It's just I think the context is important here.
Yeah, I agree that the context is important. I think that's accurate. Yeah, I think that's fair. And but the context that he's a true freshman who is getting his first start is important too.
Absolutely,
Like,
great performance.
that's-
Like nothing, not taking
Yeah.
anything away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And so, like, you know, what he was able to accomplish on short notice in that situation with a lot of personal pressure too. It's not easy to go home and play in front of your family, especially when you don't know you're going to do it. Maybe it was easier because he didn't know until Saturday night, but I'm sure it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. And for it to look as smooth as it did, I think is really important. And so, like, yeah, I thought it looked really good, and I thought they played really well. And yeah, the defense ran into a situation with a mobile quarterback, and again, I think he played really well. I'm not going to diminish what he did at all. I thought he played nice football. So looks like he's getting better. He's probably not going to be there next year. That'll be my guess. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll stick it out. I hope he does. I hope he's in the Big Ten for a couple more years because the league will benefit from having Nico Iamaleava in it. So, yeah. But I think everybody on this Monday is feeling pretty darn good based on what happened in that game. They don't necessarily look so much at the final score. They see the good things that happened and the 28-7 lead, and Emmett Johnson surging, and TJ Lateef doing what he did. And I think everybody's going to have a pretty buoyant 2 bye weeks before they go to Penn State.
Sam, let me ask you something about like the this isn't even optics because I think everybody has access to the same information, but the narratives that surround each side of the ball. Like, I'll start defensively. I was having this conversation with Keith Mann yesterday, and if you could quantify it, if you will. Nebraska this is 10 straight games without giving up more than 400 total yards of offense to an opponent, right? You've seen the graphic. It hasn't been done since 2009 at Nebraska, right? So that's 12 year or 14. What's 20, 25, 16 years, right? My math is failing me. Since that's been done in the context of college football and how it's played, and what we think the narrative is that surrounds this defensive unit, what say you?
Well, yeah, I would say that you don't have to convince me that John Butler's done a really good job this year, and I think he has. And defensively, they've done a nice job of coming up in some key moments. Obviously, that happened again on Saturday. So Singleton made a play on a 4th down. Iamaleava should have given the ball, but he still made the play.
Even in an answer, I get but Sam.
Well, they said it.
Sam.
After the game, their coach said he should have given the ball, and he should have given.
But we don't do that with Nebraska. It's only when it's the opponent and we want to like discount. We don't say, well, he should have caught. You know what I mean?
We get mad when Nebraska.
We get mad when we do it at Nebraska.
I can't speak for anybody else. I can definitely speak for me, and I do it with both sides.
Okay.
So I try to be as objective as possible.
Still my dude.
Which is why I'm able to say I don't put a lot. I mean, Nebraska's pass rush actually played pretty well. Nico Iamaleava made plays. I can say that. Like, he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't some flaw in the way Nebraska did X, Y, and Z. Like, I would put him in an Adrian Martinez level scrambler. And Adrian was a great scrambler. Like, you couldn't figure out when he was coming at you how fast he was coming at you, and he could move. He could change direction. And so Iamaleava's like that. Like,
I was surprised that he's such a heavy runner.
Yeah. Well, so was Adrian, right? Like, Adrian was too.
Yeah.
But it's
sick, though.
I think there's got to be an intimidation factor, although no one's going to admit it. When a guy that big is coming at you, and he's coming at you faster than a tight end would, you're not quite sure how to tackle that. And so I think they had probably a couple of moments where they were, he made some guys kind of freeze because you're not exactly sure what he's going to do. Is he going to try to run you over? Is he going to try to go left or right? So he made a lot of plays, and I think they would all. Now you could ask them, because I did this in the rewind where I picked the 5 mobile quarterbacks.
Mm.
Sorsby, Underwood, Childs. I'm missing somebody, but and Iamaleava and Maeva last week.
Okay.
I think out of the 5, they would say Iamaleava was the best runner. I would think. Now maybe they'd say it was Sorsby. I know Childs put him in a spin cycle a couple times, but those were weird plays on 4th down where Nebraska was on a blitz, and I think they took care of Childs pretty well. So I would say Iamaleava was the best. So yeah, I mean I think I'm able to say this is what UCLA did, and then on 4th down, yeah, they should have given the ball, but you know what? It doesn't matter. The reality is Nebraska made enough stops in that game. That's what matters. At the end of the game, were they gassed? Yeah, they were. But Nebraska's offense picked them up at the end. They ran out the clock. I'm sure Nebraska's offense could have scored on the final drive if that's what they really wanted to do, and they just didn't need to. And so, yeah, I mean, I thought Nebraska's offense in this game was excellent, and I thought Nebraska's defense played as it's usual, played well in the spots where it has all season long. So right at the start of the game, getting a 3-and-out, huge. They did it. They got a couple key stops in the second half. They've done that pretty much all season. Huge. They did it. Like they've done all the things that you would say they should do. And again, I think Butler's doing a really good job with what I consider to be a young defense, and a little bit, not the biggest defense Nebraska's ever had. You compare the 09 defense and you look at those guys, you had Sue and Crick and Pierre Allen, and Barry Turner. Oh my goodness. I mean, that was their front 4. And that they don't have that right now. Now they're getting better, but they don't have that. And then the secondary is pretty good, actually. I don't know that I would say they have Prince and Dennard at corner quite yet, though. So that's a lofty comparison, and I think Nebraska's done a really good job on defense this year. But my expectations going into the season were not that Nebraska was going to be 09 Nebraska. I thought they were going to have up and down moments because of their youth and their size. Come back next year at this time, and I think we'll be talking about a Nebraska team that's in the college football playoff hunt, and B, we'll be saying that it's because of the defense. And C, could the offense be a part of that? It might, but part of what happened on Saturday is we began that conversation of like, okay, what does Nebraska need to do offensively to make it look like that all the time? Do they just need to click their heels and go, mobile quarterback? Or do they need to go to the portal and say, okay, to get where we need to get with our 5-star who's a great passer, we need to go get and invest in the kind of offensive tackles you need. And in my opinion, tight ends. I don't think you can do it with just, one really good tight end, one guy that's learning how to play tight end and a blocker. I think you need multiple tight ends. And this is my opinion. And I actually think they need more tight ends if they're gonna do the pro style thing. You can't just do it with one. You can't just do it with 3 receivers. You have to have, in my opinion, tight ends. And we'll see if they're able to get those guys or if they decide to go in a different direction.
Sam, I was curious what you thought about how the offensive play calling was in the second half, particularly after Nebraska went up 28-7. And I'll tell you why I'm asking this, and I hope it doesn't skew your answer. It felt like to me at a certain point, Nebraska thought the only way we lose this game is if we give them something. And I thought the game was called that way. How did you think the play calling went after they went up 28-7?
Yeah, I think you could say that they were trying to make sure that they weren't opening the door back up. You could argue that they were trusting their defense to get it done, which in theory it did. They didn't want to open things back up too much. They had the little crosser to Barney, and that got 1 first down. And then I think they on 3rd and 6, they went to the same play, but they went in the opposite direction. I think their hope was maybe they could get that play to work again. And Lateef made the throw and Barney made the catch, but yeah, that UCLA sniffed it out. So maybe that 3rd down you could have done something different. But in my mind's eye, I feel like they were moving pretty quick there and they were trying to get that play off. Maybe I have that wrong. But they tried that same play twice, and it's a safe play. It's a little crosser to Barney. So maybe they could have done something a little differently there. But on the final drive of the game, I thought that was great play call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, they're going to throw a little slant, and then they're going to do a little rollout pass, and we're actually, just to give people a picture of how our jobs work, we're walking down the Rose Bowl Stadium stands into the stadium and then down to the field is where I'm going. Other people went to the tunnel, but I usually go down through the stands because it's faster. And so as the slant happens, I'm walking through the stands, and then I get down to the field, and that's the moment they ran that play action pass. And they hit it to Hunter for whatever it was, 13, 15 yards. I'm like, well, there's the game right there. There you go. And I was impressed by their audacity. And again, you have to tip your cap to Holgerson and to everybody involved. Like, those wide receivers blocked their tails off, and the linemen blocked hard. It just felt like everybody kind of rallied just the way the rule said they would. That this is one of those weeks where what rule said at the beginning of the week came to fruition in the way the team played. And that's good coaching. You have to say that is part of what a CEO and a head coach is supposed to do, is set the vision and then have it come to fruition. And it did. It was a good week for Nebraska in that regard. Like, it looked like everybody was on the same page and everybody was picking everybody up, and the football was really good, especially at the beginning of the game. The football at the beginning of the game was outstanding.
That threw me because I thought that I said early in the week, I thought that 5 minutes in his open was some of his best 5 minutes, and then I also thought he's really good in these situations because it's kind of a back against the wall kind of thing, and there were all these other narratives that he wasn't going to let come to fruition. But let me fast forward to I asked you about the defense and kind of the narrative versus the actual results. How should we be treating, if all the things were true about, or not true, if all the discussions were being had about Dylan versus TJ and the offensive line play and what it is and what it isn't, all the things that we've talked about this year, how do we quantify, or how should we quantify Emmett Johnson's performance on a national level, given all the things we've talked about?
Yeah. I mean, to do it in that setting, that's the last game of the night. So I'm sure there were a lot of people that were like, oh, let's go check out this Nebraska game. And, for Emmett to play like that in that situation, and I'm sure was very helpful to him. I know there were some NFL scouts in the press box that were, so I'm sure that was super helpful.
There were a ton.
That's not
B-Mac and I were
right?
getting on the elevator, and we're like, seems to be a lot of pro folks here.
There are, that's pretty common in the larger markets. There might be one or two that come to Nebraska because it's just a harder place to travel to. But I think it was a great night for him, and he played his usual game. Only this time it included a couple of receptions. So I haven't looked at it. I don't know what his receiving yards are for the season, but they got to be pretty close to third on the team. I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
I believe he's right at 300 for the year.
Yeah. So he's had just a great season. I will say that, it's such a testament to his work ethic and the you do have to credit Holgerson to some degree, because I do think Holgerson's belief in him has helped, and I think you have to credit Barthel for working with him, and it's the best season since Amir Abdullah, in 2014, and I was saying to somebody, I said, just knowing, if you grew up around this program, so much more of the conversation has become about the quarterbacks, but the reality is when kids were kind of playing in the yard, in the 80s and 90s, they were the running back, and it's not that everybody didn't love Steve Taylor and Tommy Frazier and all that, but you wanted to be the running back in the yard. You wanted to be Ken Clark or Keith Jones or Tyrese Knox. He was one of my favorites. He was.
That's a great point.
You know, and so like, or you wanted to be the wingback. You wanted to be, Dana Brinson,
Richard Bell,
and Richard Bell. So like, what Nebraska's offense used to be is the quarterback was in the middle of all that, and obviously Turner Gill was great, but like he was in the middle of all that, but he wasn't. But what you really remembered was all the supplementary parts and all the other guys that were making plays. And I'm like, what Emmett Johnson's doing right now is the way it kind of used to be every year. And there was one great back after another, and it went from this guy to this guy to this guy to this guy. And oh, by the way, the third string guy was as good as the first string guy. And I think that's the Nebraska that a lot of people remember. And so one of the reasons that I think Emmett Johnson is so popular is because he reminds people of the way that it used to be. And it was even that way 12 years ago when they went from Roy to Rex to Amir. I mean, you tell me that there's three, other than Sue, I'm not sure there's three more popular players in the last 15, 16 years than Roy Halou, Rex Burkhead, and Amir Abdullah, and Sue. I know. But that's it. Like, people love the running back position at this school, and it's good to see Nebraska getting back to that, and you hope they can continue it going from here.
Sam, I know you got to go. I love him. Do you think people love Roy Halou?
In hindsight, yeah. I mean, he has the school record for rushing yards.
So yeah. I'm one of these. Gosh, I know you got to go. I'm one of these people. He's misrepresented in Nebraska's all-time greats. I think Roy Halou was incredible, and people were like, I thought real time. It felt like people wanted other guys to be playing too, or thought he was a little one-dimensional. I think, for me, Roy Halou was
phenomenal.
He was phenomenal.
Yeah,
as a runner. I just don't know if we remember him like that, or we thought about that real time. I'm glad you brought him up.
I think about the Missouri game a lot.
Dude, he's sensational.
I remember it.
Well, sometimes those are easy runs. He was just fast. I'm like, no, this dude is.
And I do have to go, but here's the great thing. You're right when you say that at the time that Roy was playing, they had Marlon Lucky, yep, and they had Quentin Castile. And obviously Rex came along in 2009. He was hurt for a good chunk of 2009, but he came along, and then Rex was there in 2010. You're right about that. However, that's part of why it was great, is because Roy Halou was really good, but the guys around him were really good too. Marlon Lucky was a good player. I mean, he was good.
Yeah.
And
beat out all
Quentin Castile, until he got thrown off the team or whatever, he was good. And so like you remember all those guys, and then if I was ranking those three, I'd put Amir number one. I don't think you can do anything other than put either those three guys. I would put Amir number one, and I don't know. Rex was a. I
don't want to get you in trouble. I'm just glad you brought him up, because I think
is two in terms of popularity.
I think his affinity is.
Yeah.
So you're one of the rare or the few folks that actually give him a high Q rating.
Right. So Rex is high on the list because of the specific moments where his skill set was always, if you need two, he'll get you three, and he could make somebody miss. Rex's play in the 2009 Missouri game, which I remember, and his play in the 2009 Colorado game on the final drive when he's coming back from injury, and his play in the 2012 Iowa game. Like, there's things that Rex did that very memorable. And those are, but Amir's number one out of those three. That's not, and I think everybody would agree. Even though they loved Rex as a kind of a folk hero, I think everybody would say that Amir was the best.
Sam McKewon, Omaha World Herald. We appreciate it, Sam.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Sam.